I'm your host, Suhana Bhattacharya, and you are listening to the Goodfirms Leaders Roundtable podcast. Now, for this podcast episode, we currently are going to talk about finance. Now, I think this word used to scare me before, and I'm sure it scares a lot of our audience as well. But as technology advanced and mobile phones became more affordable, we all came to know that it is indeed nothing to be scared of, right? The growth in the financial sector has been phenomenal thanks to digital marketing that has driven growth in the financial sector. It has made us more aware of the financial instruments that are available and many more such things. So, for this episode, we are in conversation with Rafael Ronner, founder and CEO at R17 Ventures. His company deals in performance marketing and helps his clients manage online advertising campaigns, including paid social, content creation, and email marketing. So, thank you so much, Rafael, for coming onto our podcast. So, as me and my team were learning more about you and learning more about your company, we saw that you took that entrepreneur plunge quite soon, maybe just after college. Please correct me if I'm wrong. So, how was the starting years, or what is that one lesson that you like to share with new entrepreneurs who are listening to us right now?
Hi, Suhana. Thanks for having me. That's right. I started a company directly after university, and I met an interesting person back then at university that already was an entrepreneur, and I guess I was pretty inspired by this. And I think he motivated me and then pushed me through to not be too scared and try certain things out. And essentially, this is what we did then. And then from there on, once you have started, it becomes much easier afterwards. Yeah, it's kind of my journey.
Okay, that's really great. So, coming to the topic that we're going to talk about, the finance market has a huge potential. And I think it is important to have a comprehensive understanding of this complex sector that your company is dealing in. So, can you provide me and our audience with a brief overview of what exactly is going on currently in the market and the extent of its revolution? Like, the sector is continuously growing. So, what is the current situation and what are the future trends that we can expect?
All right. As a top player, like pretty much any other industry, also finance is becoming much more digital, like from an operational point of view, but also, and this is interesting for us, from a customer acquisition point of view. So
Mhm.
you have more and more finance companies that can acquire customers online because a certain part or their full product is even online. If you take different verticals within finance, let's maybe take retail finance, right? Your classical salary bank account, your normal expenses bank account. It's now in these days obviously pretty easy to open a bank account fully, right? So that's the whole retail industry, but more and more it also comes into investment part. So for institutional investors or for private investors to actually do trading accounts online, etc. And whenever you can do an action online, it becomes very important that you can also acquire the customer online. And this is what we kind of specialize in. So the transformation that happens within finance is that everything becomes more digitalized and the acquisition channel digital becomes more important because you can find your clients online and you don't need to have them in your physical bank, retail shop, or in with your relationship manager, or so you
Mhm.
can actually do digital. I think that's the big change that we foresee, and I think this will become even stronger in the future, obviously.
Right. We have seen that social media plays a very important role when it comes to maybe e-commerce or maybe someone in the fashion business. So, right now, I think, regardless of the industry, social media is a very powerful tool to build a strong online presence and attract customer. But how can social media be leveraged effectively to find and connect with potential clients organically? Like, how are you helping your clients get better business opportunities through social media in the finance sector?
All right. So we do both. We do organically and paid. For sure, paid is the stronger driver of actually acquiring customers. I think organic is very, very strong for communicating and engaging with your existing customer base, with your existing fan base, because essentially or how we look at social media. Let's say you have a room full of people, right? That's kind of the story how we see it. You have a room full of people and you have pretty much direct access to these people because they're all using smartphones and they have their smartphones constantly with them. So you can then obviously target, filter, and do different messaging, but it's about how you can communicate to that pool of people. And usually on the organic side, we would focus on actually driving value, meaning let's take an investment manager or an asset manager. What they could post on their social media is, as long as it's obviously compliant, regulatory, you could share certain insights that actually drive value and that keep your existing clients engaged to your brand and loyal to your brand. This is how we use the organic side most often, and that goes from through all channels. I think LinkedIn, the obvious one, but I think also Instagram and Facebook or Meta, they get underestimated quite often because I think they get seen by people mainly either in a full consumer product space or in a just pure social, like let's say not business related context. But this is a big myth. What we often see that Meta is the strongest channel for customer acquisition as well as engagement. Because at the end of the day, in most Western countries, it's the same that in Switzerland, I think you have 8.5 million people and you have 5.9 or almost 6 million people that are using Facebook or Instagram. If you deduct the kids and so on, you pretty much have everyone in the country on Facebook and Instagram. And that means also that you have all the CEOs. So you actually get quality people, which is important if you're trying to look for potential investors, that you find them there as well.
Right. I think you've highlighted a very good point here that in the finance sector, people don't really think that their customers are on social media platforms like Facebook or Instagram, but that is where they're missing the biggest customer base which they can generate for the business, right?
Yeah, totally. I fully agree. And it's often this myth, right? If you talk to people in finance, then pretty much in the beginning, if you outline your strategy, it comes very often, no, Meta or Facebook and Instagram is nothing for us because our client base is not there and so on. And very often we do it as a trial. Very often then it works out that it is the best performing channel at the end of the day.
So, can you give us some tips on how financial institution or private market firms can identify and target potential clients more effectively? One is obviously not to miss out on platforms like Facebook and Instagram, but what are some other tips which would you like to share?
I think what is also quite obvious in our opinion is obviously you select depending on all sorts of demographical data, right? So either it is region, country, city, age, so everything that is demographical. That can be an okay-ish targeting to start with. That's one angle. Another one that is quite interesting and that we use quite often is more based on machine learning. So you don't do too big of a narrow targeting. So you leave your audiences quite broad and then you spread a certain visual. Let's say you do a video about a certain topic in investing. And then you just use the audiences that have watched that video or have engaged to a certain way with that video and use them not only as retargeting, but also you build lookalikes on top of that, or you give the input to the machine learning that they should find you more of these type of people. That's a bit more I would say, data-driven and automated approach compared to manual targeting. Yeah, so these are on a big level the two main things we do. So it's either targeting demographics or it's based on machine learning.
Okay. I think with the rise of artificial intelligence and automation, so what changes can you see in client experiences with automating marketing efforts? Like, are they positive? Are they negative? How it has been?
I think you have different point of views how you can look at that question. Overall, I think it's very positive as long as you focus on the actual end result, because then it makes your life easier, right? I mean, if your end result is, so if we work with finance clients, our end result is to drive them clients. That's the number one topic and priority for us. And we get often remunerated based on that. If for us, it doesn't matter how much of the process we can now automate. So let's say in targeting, we can automate a lot of things, but therefore we invest more time in the visual. It becomes more tricky for agencies or people who are kind of want to prove themselves with manual targeting. And then they realize, okay, the machine learning targeting is actually outsmarting my manual targeting. So it depends on how you look at it. From an end result point of view, I think it's a very good trend, and it will actually make the results better and faster.
With the help of artificial intelligence and automation, businesses can reach more customers and grow their profits faster, in fact, right?
I would say so, yeah, sure. I
Mm.
mean, if you automate things, you reduce essentially your costs of operating certain parts in your business. And then if you have more profits due to that cost saving, you can invest more in whatever areas you want to accelerate. You can accelerate quicker.
Okay. So, what are some key challenges faced by these financial businesses when it comes to client acquisition in the digital era?
That's a good question. So I think the biggest challenge they face is how to qualify leads, because by the very nature you have, is this really a potential client or not? And what has been quite a game changer for us, we were leveraging the Facebook and LinkedIn and Google native lead forms much more than any sorts of landing pages. And we
Mm.
built in a certain qualification logic in these forms to first of all send signals much quicker back to the platforms, right? So let's take the two paths you can essentially do in lead generation. The one is you show someone an ad and then you send the people to the landing page. You track things there with pixel and so on, or you skip the landing page part and actually build a lead form within the platforms. And the beauty about that is you can build all sorts of logic in these lead forms. For example, let's say one business case, you're looking for investors that can bring more than $100,000 investment volume, right? So first of all, you don't want people who cannot bring 100K, but also a person that brings 5 million is much more interesting than a person that brings 100K. And
Mm.
you can qualify, you can almost tag these type of leads who can bring more and then send that back to the platforms, and the platform will then automatically look for more of these type of people. And that is a quite a big thing, and that works incredibly well for the cases we work with. Yeah, so the biggest challenge is qualification, and but there's also opportunities in there.
Yeah. So marketing has changed a lot in the couple of years, and we have also seen influencer marketing as something which has worked for many brands. So have you implemented the same for your clients in the financial and private market?
All right, we don't use it as aggressive as in the influencer for the brand. Another best practice or system that works well is that you do webinars, right? Often in the financial industry, the topics are a bit more complex than in retail. It's a different story if you sell a face cream or if you sell an investment product. It needs more
Mm.
explanation time, it needs more consideration time, etc. So webinars can be a powerful tool, in my opinion, to educate an audience and hook them up on your product. And what we dare do is we invite big names of the certain industry into this webinar. First of all, they bring their own reach, they bring their own follower base to listen to the webinar. But secondly, they also add a lot of trust into the webinar, because let's say if you can get these type of people on board, that usually means, okay, you're a high quality financial business, etc., etc. So using influencers for actual webinars. So where it's in the consumer space, you have influencers for very short form videos. Let's say you let them show your product and say a couple of words to it. Whereas in finance, you use them for a 30, 60-minute webinar to build much more trust, which comes with the added complexity, I guess. So these are two best practices we use. And then maybe on the visual side, so if you have these influencers in a webinar, you try to use their names or their faces on certain ads, which increases click-through rate and an engagement rate in any case.
Right. And I completely agree to the fact that understanding something related to finance is a bit complex. So even I personally like to attend such webinars, and having an influencer on that is actually kind of like a bonus. So that's really great for even the attendees who attend such webinars, right?
Yeah, totally. No, I agree with you.
Hmm.
It's a value.
Right. So, what are some common mistakes or pitfalls to avoid when implementing digital marketing campaigns for the finance companies so that they can get more clients?
So the biggest common mistake I personally see is that they focus their digital advertising not on actual performance, but just on brand awareness. And that makes it then obviously at the end of the day very hard to measure, very hard to control, to steer, and so on. And often then budget gets cut because you can't see the result. So I think it really, from a strategic point of view and the actual KPIs you set for yourself, I think most finance companies still see digital marketing as a brand awareness channel and not as a sales channel. And once you manage to get the view right that digital is actually your sales channel, similar that it is your whole sales team that runs around in the world, then you will get it right. And then obviously you have a ton of hacks and tactics and strategies and so on, and channel selection, creatives, etc., that will drive performance. But it really starts from strategy. Seeing digital marketing as sales and not as brand awareness or just marketing. I see probably the biggest mistake. Then secondly is probably the tech stack. You need a properly integrated CRM system. I mean, often we see Microsoft Dynamics, Salesforce, HubSpot. These are good systems, but if you have custom built stuff, it becomes quite tricky. So that I would say on the tech stack, you need proper analytics. And the big thing in finance is to be fully, obviously, data privacy compliant in Europe, GDPR, but also all sorts of kind of other regulatory things. That's a big point. Then team-wise, I think you need someone in your company, or ideally a whole team, that has dedicated time to challenge and sparring us as the agency. Usually then you have the most fruitful projects if you also have some sort of knowledge in-house and are not fully dependent on the agency, but you also have focus there. So team setup, and you should give it a bit of time. It's not going to happen obviously overnight. It needs time to learn and to find the sweet spots in your industry to really acquire clients. So that would be probably the 4 common mistakes that happen.
So, what is that one piece of advice you'd like to give to startups or companies who want to stay ahead of the curve and constantly innovate their digital marketing strategies to adapt to the changing market dynamics? Because before a company hops onto a trend, another one is starting. What is the one advice you have for startups or companies?
You actually said it pretty nice. Once you jump on a trend, the next one is already starting. And by the very nature, this requires to be super agile and like testing a lot. Really try out new things and stay ahead of the curve. I think that's the best protection to not fall short or behind, is to actually try new things. Having testing frameworks, having testing structure, implementing the teams that new things get tried, that you don't punish experiments and failure. Experimenting is very, very crucial. And then also just do it, not over engineer and overthink stuff. Speed matters quite a bit. And a lot of knowledge is very available in out there. I think you get absolute brilliant courses. You get obviously YouTube and the knowledge is there. It really comes down to, can you come into execution and be fast enough to move the needle.
You've shared some really great points here. Though my personal favorite was not to over engineer or to overthink it, because in our personal lives we also overthink a lot of decision and somehow not actually doing it in the first place, right?
Yeah, totally.
Right.
I think once you've managed to not over engineer, things happen much quicker and usually you get to the result better, faster, more happy even.
Perfect. So far we have covered a lot about driving growth in the financial sector through digital marketing. We've covered a lot about the do's and don'ts, or how can social media actually help, what platforms can help businesses get clients. So finally, we'd like to know about the ways in which Goodfirms has contributed to the success of your organization and a feedback on how we can assist you further.
All right. I think we really appreciate the partnership with you. I mean, essentially, you bring us clients because our potential or companies that are interested in performance marketing services, they go onto your platform and they look for firms that match their criterias. And obviously, we have a nice profile there and we get listed. So you refer at the end of the day leads to us, which helps us a lot. Yeah. And we appreciate that. We hope it moves ahead like that. I don't have any specific point that you can do better. I think we're quite happy with the service and yeah, let's keep going like that.
Thank you so much, Rafael, for saying such words about Goodfirms. So we continuously keep working so that we could bring more initiatives like this podcast, so that technology as a sector can also be one of the more core things about what people hear on podcasts. So we are really trying that. And thank you so much, Rafael, for coming onto our podcast and sharing your experience of how digital marketing can be leveraged in the financial sector.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure to speak to you and have a great day.